Hello and welcome to A Course in Miracles 365. I'm your host, Tomas Garza. And if you are enjoying your weekend, I hope that you're having a beautiful, beautiful time. All right. It's Saturday morning here in Arizona, joining you live wherever you are. All right. So I have a couple of questions for you all tuning in. And if you're tuning into the replay, thank you. And feel free to type your answers in the comment thread for this. I'm curious, for those that are going through the workbook for students with me, how you're finding this material, what your reactions are, what your impressions are. Is it going beautifully, smoothly well? Is it not going beautifully, smoothly well? Is there anything that you are particularly having difficulty understanding, or something that has been an aha moment for you? If you have any of those, yeah, I'd be curious to know your impressions and your experiences. So if you're catching this live right now, feel free to type those into the comments, because I do have some things to say about lesson 32 in the workbook. It's a very, very important lesson, but it's one of those that's foundational and simple. So we will have plenty of time today on the live stream for questions and comments. So yeah, what are your impressions of the course if you're not going through the workbook right now and you've got some familiarity with it, if you've been through it before, or the text or anything? What are your impressions of this spiritual practice, of this text? What are you learning? Aha moments, difficulties? Yeah, I'd be very curious to know your experience. So let's get right in then to lesson 32 in the workbook. So as you're seeing, following these videos, the workbook follows a logical progression, because we're not expected to acquire the wisdom of Buddha or Jesus Christ in 15 minutes, right? We're not expected, nor should we expect ourselves, to have an instantaneous flash of blinding light and awakening. If that happens for you, wonderful. It's a gift. Yeah, for sure. But for most of us, it requires a process. Why? Because we've become so attenuated, so habituated to the ego's thought system, that we systematically need to go through and learn a different thought system, enter A Course in Miracles. And this is only one of many spiritual practice and thought systems in this world. It's just one of many. Maybe it speaks to you, maybe it doesn't. And if it doesn't, that's perfectly okay. And if you're going through it and you're not sure if it speaks to you, that also is perfectly okay. One of the things that I think is genius about the workbook for students is it does not expect us to believe these ideas. Belief is not required to work on and practice an idea that you only do for a few repetitions a day, for a couple of minutes, or whatever the workbook asks us to practice. It's not several hours. So you don't have to run off to the Himalayas to learn how to meditate. You can do that wherever you are. Might be the Himalayas, might not be. Yeah, for most of us, it's not. So we're only asked to apply the idea, and that's it. Belief is not required, and it's systematic. It aims to help us undo our thought pattern. Why would we want to undo that anyway? We've lived with it so far, haven't we? Yeah. Well, in terms of overall happiness, how is that working out for us? How is the ego's thought system working out for you? I mean, we have the ability to change our minds and stop feeling disconnected, to no longer have unloving thoughts, to no longer go through endless cycles of frustration and pain and suffering. We have the ability to end all this. How? Well, we have the power to do this because we are the power. We've invented the world that we see. And this is lesson 32 in the workbook. The idea, I have invented the world I see. Now, this is why, if you tuned into yesterday's live, this is why we're not victims of the world that we see, which should be liberating, right? Should be liberating because we made it up. Now let that resonate. Yeah, if you haven't thought about this ever, I'm glad you're here because I'm happy to be the one that brings this message. So don't kill the messenger. Thank you. Yes. We have invented the world that we see. Let me read verbatim the first paragraph of the commentary for today's lesson here, because there's a lot in it. We'll spend a couple minutes unpacking it, and I'd love to know, again, as I mentioned at the outset, your current experiences with the Course in Miracles. What do you love? What's not sitting with you? What is? I mean, how has this radically shifted and changed your life, if it has? And if it hasn't, don't worry about that. Maybe it will. Okay. So let's read this paragraph here. Today, we're continuing to develop the theme of cause and effect. Okay. You are not the victim of the world you see because you have invented it. You can give it up as easily as you made it up. You can give it up as easily as you made it up. You will see it or not see it as you wish. While you want it, you will see it. When you no longer want it, it will not be there for you to see. Very profound. We've made this up. We can unmake it. You literally have the power to make worlds. We've all collectively done this. We can unmake it. Where do you start? Right now. Just start, even if this seems completely incredible, off the wall, far out there, crazy. That's okay. Whatever your thoughts are about this idea, that's perfectly okay. The workbook simply asks that we practice applying the idea. And it states that we should apply it with our eyes open. I've invented the world I see. Look around you, whatever you see, for a couple minutes. I've invented the world I see, and then close your eyes and do the same thing. As we are released from the world that we see and don't see at the same time. And we've worked on a couple of lessons that tell us that vision is not from the body's eyes, but it's from the mind. So we work on it in that way. And I just recommend that you do the practice periods as best you can. If you don't do every single one, that is absolutely all right. If you do one, that's more than none. Right? And if you forget the day's idea, which I've done many times, of course, because I'm breathing, then come back to it the next day if you want, or move ahead. Right? Yeah, it's your choice. No one's being compelled here to do anything. That's one of the geniuses of A Course in Miracles, is that it is not a religion, happily. Because I think that's the last thing, don't you agree, that the world needs, is another dogmatic, rigid, solidified thought system. Now, this is a self-study course, so you literally do go at your own pace. So we can give up the world that we made up really easily. It's a choice to give it up. Now, we won't necessarily see immediate results. You still have to pay your light bill this month. Sorry. Right? We're not instantly going to be absolved of that. Your body's still going to have needs. You're going to need to eat, to drink water. We're not necessarily going to instantly transport ourselves somewhere else. And we're not going to do that anyway. Why? Because there's nowhere to go. There's nowhere actually to go. We're waking up to ourselves as we've always been. It's never gone anywhere. It's never gone anywhere. We've just chosen to occlude ourselves, to throw a veil over who we really are. And A Course in Miracles, the workbook for students, is peeling that off. And most of us, quite honestly, aren't ready for it to be ripped off. We have to do it gradually. And that's one of the things that makes this workbook so ingenious. And if you've looked ahead, and I know a lot of you probably have, if you've looked ahead at the lessons, we're on 32 today on this live stream, but you might be further ahead because maybe you started 6 months ago or something like that. But if you look ahead, you can see how one lesson builds on another. It's a cumulative and ingenious and very well thought out system. So we can give up suffering and fear if we wish. If we want it, we'll see it. If we want love and happiness and the peace of God, by contrast, we'll see that. Our decision, moment to moment, right now, is which do we want? Want the peace of God? Then you will see it. If you want suffering and separation, you'll see that. We have that power. We made a situation, we can unmake it. And we unmake it a step at a time. It's a process. So let's see who's tuning in here today. I'm so happy that you all are watching, wherever you're watching from here. And we got a bunch of you on here. Thank you so much, Bernadette. Good morning. How are you? How are you today? And Deirdre, thank you so much for sharing and for joining us regularly. Isabel, how are you? And Hope, yeah, Hope joining us from London. How are you today? Thank you, and good afternoon to you. Yeah, it's afternoon there. It's 9:15 a.m. here in Arizona, in North America. So does anyone have any questions? If you do, we have time on this live stream. If there are questions about this concept, lesson 32, or about A Course in Miracles in general, or if anyone has any impressions or reactions about the course that they'd like to share, how it's changed you, what has been beautiful for you, what has been difficult for you. And there are always parts. This is the third time that I've been through the workbook for students, and it's like watching a movie more than once, right? Each time you see something different, you notice something different. And I've noticed that lessons so far, and we've only gotten to lesson 32 here, I've noticed that there were some concepts that troubled me a few years ago that I had trouble letting go of because my ego wanted to grip on to what it was used to. And now they don't bother me. So will the opposite happen? Yeah, it's possible, right? Something that didn't bother me 3 years ago might be coming up for release right now, and we don't know, which is why it's so valuable to go through again and again. In fact, I can picture people reaching the end, lesson 365, and then the following day, opening to page one and starting all over again. In fact, I've done that, and I'm glad I did that. I did do it back to back at one point, just because I felt like it would benefit me and I would get a deeper understanding. And sure enough, that was my experience. All right. So yeah, and Deirdre writes, I'd like to switch it up by going back in lessons to change perspective just for fun, because because humans are funny. We are funny, are we not? We're really funny. We're weird when you think about it. And this is good. I mean, this is something that I think is worth celebrating. Who doesn't have the experience of laughing at yourself? I mean, I laugh at myself all of the time when I open up these lessons to think that, wow, I really, really needed this. I don't know, 25 years ago or something like that when I was younger and really had a strong ego tendency, one or the other, or whatever it is. Um, but the fun thing is we encounter this material precisely when we're meant to encounter it. I wasn't ready for it when I was in my 20s. And we are funny. The way we perceive things is really different, isn't it? And we appear to be having all of these different experiences. Some things might come easily to us and another person struggles with that, and vice versa. Yeah, I struggle with a lot of mechanical things actually, and pick up other things really easily, like languages. And for someone else, that might be the exact opposite. The exact opposite, right? So we all have different proclivities, and one of the beauties, I think, of the workbook is it's kind of a leveling, kind of equalizing platform for us, because the idea applies equally to all of us, but we're going to see it differently, which is really cool. Yeah, and hello everyone else that is joining in April. How are you? Thank you for tuning in here today. So if you have further impressions or questions, whether it's about today's workbook lesson or another, or A Course in Miracles in general, I'm here to be a resource for you. And if you have specific questions, I'll do my best to answer them. And I really don't have that much more to add on lesson 32. If you want to, if you want to read the commentary on lesson 32 more than once, I highly recommend that you go back and read that first paragraph again and again and again and again, because there's so much profound truth to it. We're not a victim of the world we see because we made it up. We have the power to make it. We can unmake it as we wish, right? As you wish, literally, as you wish. If you don't wish to see separation and suffering, choose not to see it, you will not see it. It's true. It's true. So whether this seems far-fetched to you or not does not matter. If it does, that's perfectly okay. I understand. These ideas might be new to you. That they might be brand new, and they are in fact intended to displace and threaten the ego. Not from a combative standpoint, mind you, but from a standpoint of love. In other words, we're shining those layers away. Love does not go to work in a violent way, does it? It is only capable of love. No, we shine the light, just shine the light, and we bring all of our illusions, all of our drama to the light. That's all. We just bring them to the light, piece at a time. Everything that's coming up for us is coming up for release. So let us release it. All right. And thank you very much for joining me. Have a beautiful weekend wherever you're joining me from. And I will see you back here again tomorrow. So tomorrow's time will be noon Eastern, 12 o'clock Eastern time tomorrow. And we'll see you back here. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.